And here we are. This team is now 8-8 and on the verge of the postseason if they can win a game. What's the magnitude of this football game on Saturday night here in Jacksonville from your eyes?
Well, I think you said it best. You know, Uche was a huge. Your segue would be like Uche would have loved this game against the Texans, right? You ran the football, you dominated them, you beat a team the way you were supposed to beat them, 31-3, right? And granted, you know, I appreciate the Doug Peterson mindset of we're playing to build a winning culture here. It's not about this game or the next one. It's about winning in the future, and we need to be able to beat teams a certain way if we think we're that good. And we'll see the way the Jags came out and played. You know, obviously ETN having a big run early in that game. Jermichael Hasty, you know, the offense, Trevor Lawrence driving the offense down, and the defense only giving up 3 points. And you know, that's what you're supposed to do to teams, especially when you're a good team and you're a playoff team playing a team that's not a playoff team. That's how you want to get going. And so this Saturday night is going to be exciting, right? Not many times. I think I only played in one AFC South Championship game. I think my knee was messed up when that happened. But you don't get many of these opportunities. At least I did. And so for this team to have this opportunity to play on primetime Saturday night, win and you're in type of championship, it's exciting. And I think Doug Peterson said it best. It's exciting for this team and these players, these coaches, and this city. And I can't wait to see kind of how they show up. Now, granted, obviously Ryan Tannehill's not there, but the Titans rested everyone. And they're going to let everyone – they're going to let it all hang out in this last game because, again, this is the playoffs. And I'm excited to see how this team responds. We always talk about responding in a positive way on this show. You win and handle your business against the Texans the way you're supposed to. Now can you bounce back on a short week and get after the Tennessee Titans?
What's the impact of this football game, win or lose, on this franchise? This team has accomplished so much, Maurice Jones-Drew. Doug Peterson is the guy. Trevor Lawrence is the guy. He's going to be good. Like, you could stop right now. You could stop and say, hey, 8 wins? Nobody thought that. 4 in a row down the stretch. Look at the growth of this football team. I mean, coming off an 0-5 October. All those things are true. But you have a chance. You have an opportunity to make the postseason, and you have a chance to do it against the Tennessee Titans, who have been a thorn for 20 years at times, and take over the reign of the AFC South. So, yeah, if you win, I know what it means. It accelerates everything else, and it increases expectations. It gives you a chance in the playoffs. If you lose, I'm just wondering, do we forget about everything that was gained because you lost the game that was the most important when the expectations changed?
I think from a fan base, yeah, you're gonna be in the moment, right? And if you lose, yes, it's gonna be like, what happened? We did all this great stuff, and we couldn't finish. But from a bigger picture, you're exactly where you wanted to be. Right, I've spoken to Shad Khan about this and multiple people in the organization. This team has a ton of talent, and we talked about it, how much talent they have. You're starting to see the talent show, and that's important. You're starting to see the talent develop and get better week after week after week, and so you don't want to stop that. Right, win, lose, or draw, you don't want to stop that. You want to keep going. But I think this is a pivotal point in the franchise's history where. I remember before I got to Jacksonville, I think Fred used to tell me these stories about when they were 14-2, and they beat everyone in the National Football League but the Tennessee Titans. Right? Didn't that happen?
Yes, it did. They lost to them 3 times that year.
The old loyal
exactly. And then I remember when I was there, Jeff Fisher saying, you know, Jacksonville's like our second home.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And all the different things. And finally it's time. It's if you want to get now, I call the games for the Los Angeles Rams, and for them to win the Super Bowl last year, they couldn't have won the Super Bowl if they didn't beat the Niners. That's just how it was. They had to beat the Niners in order to go to the Super Bowl. Back in the early 2000s, when they won with Kurt Warner and all those guys, the greatest show on turf, they had lost 17 times to the Niners before beating them that year, and then they ran off and went to the Super Bowl. I think that same deal is here with the Jags. Like, if you expect to make that next jump, you have to get over beating the Titans when it matters, right? Beating the Titans in a championship type of game. And I don't again, my history is a little wrong. I don't remember what year was that. That was the '99 season, right? That the Titans beat the Jags in the AFC Championship game in Jacksonville, right?
Yes, yeah. And that was the only team Jacksonville lost to that year. And that's kind of like if there's a curse of the Titans, that's where it started in '99. And since then, the Jags have had some nice years, but overall, it hasn't been very good, Mojo.
And well, here we go again, a championship game in Jacksonville for the AFC South. And if you can get over this hump, I think it will be a springboard going forward into what you can do.
Maurice, for someone who's not emotionally invested in the Jaguars, I started watching this game against the Texans, and I was a little bit concerned because the Jags have known now for more than a week that the Texans game wasn't going to matter as much because of this last game on the schedule against the Titans. However you were going to slice it, it was going to be about that last game. So I think there were a few Jags fans who might have been a little bit worried that either the Texans curse or the fact that maybe it could present itself as a trap game with the Titans game on the horizon. But going into this weekend, is there any way in any universe whatsoever that this team isn't locked in on this game and not looking past it to the playoffs because the Titans are injured? Like, no one's doing that this week.
No, I don't think so at all. I think they're in the mindset of the hunter, right? Like, if you see a prey, if you're out in the wild, I went to Africa this off season or this summer, and I went on a safari, and they talk about, the strong, the survival of the fittest. Either the strong survive, right? If you're hurt or you're young or you don't know, you're going to get eaten. That's just how it is out there. So you got to get hit to the game quick. I think that's what the Jaguars are, where in their mindset, okay, if you're banged up, so what? You're on these lines. We're going to go after it. And I love seeing what they did to the Texans. That mindset that they had of going out there and putting it on the Texans like they were supposed to, that tells you they have that instinct of we're going to go get it. We're not going to, some people call it the killer instinct, or they're going to keep their foot on the gas and keep pressing forward, right? When your quarterback is, buying in and he's leading the team and, everyone's starting to really feel, you can feel the Jags coming along and seeing them get better week after week. This is the time to put it all together. And the funny thing is, it ain't even much pressure on the Jags because who expected you to be here? Yeah. Tennessee was the 1 seed last year.
Yeah, but
right?
now you're here, though.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you are here, so the pressure's on them to try to defend their championship. Your job is to go through and knock them out. I hear it all the time, like, oh, well, it's just the Jags. I'm like, well, let's not forget the Jags have beaten some really good teams this year that they'll probably play in the first round as well when they handle their business. But they have to go out there and handle their business. And so I think beating Tennessee in Tennessee was a big start, was kind of the start to all this. And now beating them in a championship game at home is going to be the kind of the final piece to building this puzzle. And I think they're ready. I don't think it's a trap game. I don't think they're going to overlook it. They're going to have Derrick Henry out there. Right, we know Derrick Henry runs well in Jacksonville. He runs well against Jacksonville. It could be in Tennessee, Antarctica, New York. It doesn't matter. They're like, he's going to run well against them. And so they have to, as a defense and an offense, they have to figure out a way to win this game.
Yeah, it's really interesting you brought the pressure point up there because I kind of view it feels like the Jags are just like cooking right now. So they're the favorite actually in this game. So it does feel like there's pressure on them. Yeah. But at the just to I guess it feels pressure here in Jacksonville because it's like take advantage of the opportunity. Don't miss out. This is a golden opportunity. I mean, you're playing Josh Dobbs for crying out loud and a beat up Tennessee team. So I get that. But Mojo brings up a good point. I mean, they were the number 1 seed. They're about to blow. This is a major collapse, Maurice Jones-Drew. They have lost 6 games in a row. Like, this is one that can hurt you and sting your organization if the Titans lose this game and don't make the playoffs for like a long, long time to come.
Yeah, I think this may be put the nail in the coffin. To be honest, I think the nail in the coffin was the trade of A.J. Brown.
Seems that way, doesn't it? In hindsight.
During the draft, because then all of a sudden, and there's a lot of people saying, hey, they went all in to win it. And they're in cap, they're in cap debt right now, and they're stuck, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get out of this cap situation. All that sounds good. But like we've said before, you don't just continue to trade away top-tier talent. And not only do you not trade it away, when you play that top-tier talent, he goes for 2 touchdowns and 100-some yards, and he has more receiving yards than your whole receiving core combined, that becomes a problem. And so I think that's where it starts there, right? And now do you get rid of Tannehill? Do you find a way to trade Derrick Henry? Do you they're in a whole other situation, right? That after this year, we don't know what the Tennessee Titans are going to look like, where the Jags are on a different trajectory. And I think it's important it's very similar to kind of what the Rams did to the Denver Broncos. And this is a thing in the league. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but if you got a coach on the brink of getting fired, your job is to get him fired.
Yeah.
Does that make if you have an organization that's kind of on the way out, you make sure you help them out the door. You scurry them out of that thing. You get their bag, you pack their bags, you kind of rush them out. It's time to go. And so this is a great opportunity for the Jags to see if they have it in them. And Doug Peterson is a guy that understands. He's played in this league. He's won a Super Bowl. He understands it. It's your chance to go out and do what you have to do. And so I'm excited for the opportunity. I'm excited to see how these players respond. I love that they're young and they're doing this too, because it gives you that 10, 15-year hope down the stretch, or not down the stretch, but later on in the future. And so this could be one of those games that can have the Jags as a contender for years to come.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting point. I think you're right. I want to ask you about Derrick Henry because you brought it up. He's very successful against the Jags. He was successful in the first quarter of the game in Nashville against the Jags. Looked like he was going to run all over him again. So there's a lot of confidence from Derrick coming back to his hometown to play against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Casey brought this up this morning on Monday Morning Madness here on ESPN 690. I mean, this could be one heck of an exclamation point to his already illustrious career to send the Jags home in a must-win game with a monster game because they have to ride Derrick Henry and a well-rested one. But he also has been banged up a little bit, Maurice Jones-Drew. He will turn 29 years old on Wednesday. I look back, you had 1,800 carries in your career. Derrick's at the point of 1,700 carries in his career. He's still been very good this season, 4.5 yards a pop, but he does have 6 fumbles, and it doesn't feel as dominant. Do you sense that Derrick is at 29 years old losing a step, maybe losing a little bit of what he was? Or is this more the offensive line is just not as good as it was in Tennessee, and they're not as good around him?
Well, I think as you get older, you're definitely not going to be the same as you were when you were in your prime, right? But I don't think that it's changed for him. I think that they've changed around him. I specifically, and I'll go back to it, I think losing A.J. Brown hurt him more than anyone else, because there were times I remember watching games saying, like, okay, who are you going to stop? A.J. Brown, you're going to double cover him and unload a box for Derrick Henry to run? Or are you going to load the box and give A.J. Brown one-on-one on the outside? That was literally their game plan. Like, if A.J. Brown singled up, we're going to throw the ball to him. If the box is unloaded, we're going to run the ball with Derrick Henry. Well, you don't have that guy out there now. And so now everyone's loading the box. Everything is to stop Derrick Henry. And they've lost a bunch of offensive linemen. Their quarterback has been beat up, and it's just been him. So I think he's a little bit. Obviously, he's much different than I am. I mean, let's be honest. I was 5'8" on a good day, 210 pounds. Where he's 6'3", 250 pounds. I mean, I'm sure he has multiple years left to be able to run the way he's ran. And guys, at the end of the day, guys don't want to tackle him. And so, as long as he can, they can build around him and better the offensive line, or if he's not there, he goes to another place with a really good offensive line, you'll get the Derrick Henry back.
And by the way, it wasn't just about A.J. Brown, because that is a really great point that this team thought that they could run only through Derrick Henry and just ignore the fact that they need pass-catching help. But they stripped the tight ends off the team. You drafted Treylon Burks if you're a Titans fan, but obviously he's had his issues on the field this year with injuries. You look at Derrick Henry, Mojo, he's got a career high in targets this year with 32 catches for 379 yards. That 11.8 yards per catch, better than every receiver on the Arizona Cardinals right now, including D-Hop. So you're sitting there going, this team really didn't have a choice for its offense but to run it through Derrick, even more so than they had. 303 carries in 2019, 378 in 2020, in only 8 games, 219, and then 319 so far this year. I mean, that is extreme use on a running back.
Yeah, and this is the funny part. Like, I've spoken out to the Titans about this. Like, Derrick Henry runs routes like a wide receiver. And for some reason, they don't try to get him the ball in space. They just like to run him downhill. That may be Mike Vrabel, because he understands late in the year, Derrick can run you, who almost ran them to a Super Bowl, right? Very similar with Pittsburgh. Like they don't utilize Najee Harris the same way. Like he's a really good receiver out of the backfield. Yes, he's a bigger guy, and yes, he can run downhill and break tackles. But as you guys saw on Sunday night, he was able to win the game on a swing route, right, catching the ball and on a linebacker and end of the game. And so they're starting to see that they can utilize Derrick Henry in different ways. What that mean? What that means for the Jags is, look, I'm going to let Traylon Burks, I'm going to let Joshua Dobbs, I'm going to let whoever else wants to try to win this game. Derrick Henry wouldn't beat me. I could care. We'll have 5 guys on him. He's not beating us.
Yeah.
We're not going to. Someone else is going to have to show up and beat one-on-one coverage and show us that you can beat us while our offense is getting better and moving forward. And so, to me, that's going to be one of the deals. Now, on the other side, a guy that we haven't talked about yet is Jeffrey Simmons, who we definitely, you got to make sure that you keep him bottled up on that O-line with Bud Dupree and Danico Autry, because those guys can turn corners and they can get you your quarterback in effect and change the game.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And Walker Little's going to have to be up for that assignment. Cam Robinson out, of course. Walker Little's been in, and hopefully they are able to do that. Offensive line's been pretty good overall for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Maurice Jones-Drew with us, Brent Friends on ESPN 690. I'm going to get way ahead for a minute, and then I'm going to let you go here in a couple. If the Jags win this game, and obviously that's what it would take to go to the playoffs, are they playing good enough football right now where maybe they could go on a run? I mean, there are some power teams now in the AFC. The Bills, the Chiefs, the Chargers are playing like they probably should now that they're healthy. The Bengals. I mean, those are legit teams. Can the Jags compete with those teams and give somebody a run for their money in January here the way they're playing if they get by this game Saturday night?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, it's crazy, it comes full circle. I remember talking to Uche about the Jags playing the Chiefs and how that game was much closer than what it was supposed to be, and the Jags had played a great game against them, and they're playing 10 times better than they were then, right? And the Chiefs are obviously a better team now as well, but, I mean, the Jags are playing some of the best football right now, and their quarterback Trevor Lawrence is making all type of throws. Their running game is there. They're running the ball. I mean, they're balanced attacked on offense. Defense, they're finding ways to get turnovers. They shut out the Jets and treated them the way they were supposed to. They just shut out, 3 points. They didn't score and they get in the end zone against the Texans. And so, yeah, they're playing the right type of football. And all you have to do is have a good matchup. Just have the right matchup. Now, granted, some of these teams have multiple wide receivers or they have all this, which is fine. That's okay. The Jags have enough weaponry on offense and enough guys to go on defense to be able to affect and change a game. And so I'm excited to see how they match up. Let's remember, they already beat the Baltimore Raiders with Lamar Jackson. They went to L.A. and beat the Chargers already. So they've done some good stuff already. And those teams have to come to you now, right? The Chargers would, if you were to play the Chargers, they have to come to Jacksonville and play. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit different playing in Jacksonville than it is in L.A.
No doubt.
Right? Baltimore's already come down and had to play you. And so you've played some of these teams that already have gotten a hold of some of these teams. I think they would be excited to go out there and play.
Yeah, I think they'd be very confident going up against some of the top teams in the league. They played Philly tough. They played Kansas City tough. They beat the Cowboys. They beat the Chargers. They beat Baltimore.
No, they believe in themselves.
Yeah, they believe. I mean, it's almost been some of the other games that have been more problematic at times
like the Colts,
than those. All right, let's finish with this. Maurice Jones-Drew, by the way, hope you had good Christmas holidays and Happy New Year to you and the fam. But we have to make sure you keep picking against the Jags, right?
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, I don't know what the Titans' little saying is, but tighten down or whatever it is. I'm going to do my part. I do all the time.
When did that start? When did that start? Like, why did you get into this superstitious thing that you have to now pick against them?
No. So what happened was, I want to say the Jags, I picked the Jags. I forget who it was. It was a team they were supposed to beat, and they lost. It was maybe in November. I forget who it was. And so then I picked against them, and then they won. I think I picked against them against Baltimore. They won. And I'm like, no, this is not good. And I started going back and looking. The only time I picked them and they won was against the Chargers. And that was early in the year. And so I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and do this Jags, pick against them and see what happens. And it's just been working. I mean, whatever it is, whatever I can do to make sure if someone puts some bad juju on me or something, whatever I can do to make sure, that the Jags are in the playoffs and doing things they need to do, I'm gonna make sure I do my part of it.
Yeah, you've been getting some
Now,
heat
you
for
gotta
it.
do your part.
Yeah, you've been getting some heat for it.
So what? Like, what do they want? What do you want from me? We're winning.
Attaboy,
I've been
Maurice.
trying to defend you. I'm like, hey, he's helping guys. He's
He
helping.
doesn't
He's
need
played his
the
role.
help. He doesn't need defense. He knows what he's doing.
Guys, at the end of the day, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're a hater," and don't get me wrong, number 32 should have been retired a long time ago. And that could be it, and maybe that could be part of the bad juju. But it was good to see Campbell get in the end zone and do his thing. It's always good to see 32 out there balling. But I gotta. Hey, if they're hating on me because the Jags win and I'm picking against them, so be it.
Take it.
Yeah, there's been few bigger cheerleaders of the Jacksonville Jaguars than Maurice Jones-Drew. So when you talk to Shad Khan, I hope you always tell him when you see him, you say, I never got off that train.
Hey, I never got on the train. I just stayed at the station with my Jags gear. You know what I'm saying?
That's awesome.
No, it's my kids that are big Jags fans. And I promise you, like, they're excited, they're cheering, they're ready to go. My oldest one is probably the biggest Jags fan there is because he grew up in the locker room, and us in the Bay Area, we hear all these Niner fans, and everyone's talking trash. And now it's finally good to see him hold his own on Instagram. So I'm excited for him.
It's an exciting time for a lot of Jags fans in that regard. Hey, man, hopefully we do it again next week. And talking about a playoff game, appreciate you jumping in. I know it's a tough day for all former Jaguars, and give our best to the family.
I appreciate you guys. See you later.